The bug spray you bought at the pharmacy last weekend has a 90-minute effective window. 90 minutes. After that, it's just lotion. And here's the thing. The average American spends somewhere between $40 and $60 a summer on chemical repellents every single year for a product that's been chemically identical since the 1940s. Meanwhile, there are 10 plants, ordinary, cheap, growing at your local garden center plants that run a non-stop 24-hour-a-day chemical defense system that mosquitoes have been trying to avoid for tens of millions of years. One of them, and I'll show you the Iowa State University research on this, repels mosquitoes more effectively than DEET. Not by 10%, not by 50%, 10 times more effectively. Let's talk about what nature actually built and why the chemical industry never wanted you to know this was growing in the pet aisle the entire time. Okay, so the first plant is lavender, and I know what you're thinking. Lavender is for candles and soap, right? That's the marketing version. The actual version is that lavender produces a compound called linalool, and linalool works by directly targeting the olfactory receptors mosquitoes use to locate carbon dioxide, which is, by the way, the primary signal they're following when they zero in on you. Linalool doesn't just smell unpleasant to mosquitoes, it actively jams their ability to find you. Studies published in the Journal of Vector Ecology confirmed that linalool reduces mosquito landing rates by over 65% in field conditions. Lavender grows in USDA zones 5 through 8. That's most of the continental United States, everything from North Carolina through Oregon. And you want to plant it in full sun, in clusters of 3 or 4 along the perimeter of your outdoor seating area. Bonus, dried lavender bundles inside your home repel moths and clothes beetles. And tonight, crush a few fresh leaves between your palms and rub your wrists. The oils activate immediately on skin contact. But okay, lavender is remarkable. We knew it smelled strong. What you probably haven't thought about is what lemongrass is doing to a mosquito's entire navigation system. Lemongrass contains citronella. Yes, the same compound in those candles. But here's what the candles don't tell you. When citronella is the candle, it disperses in seconds the moment there's any breeze. When citronella is the plant, it's constantly being regenerated and re-released from the leaves, especially when those leaves move. Seriously, a lemongrass plant in a light wind is actively broadcasting. Research from the University of Guelph confirmed that the monoterpene compounds in lemongrass, primarily citronellol and geraniol, disrupt a mosquito's antennal receptor cells to the point where the insect cannot accurately locate a host. It's not just repelling them, it's blinding them. Lemongrass grows well in zones 9 through 11, Florida, coastal California, the Gulf Coast, but it thrives as a container plant in colder zones if you bring it inside before the first frost. Plant it in large containers flanking both sides of any outdoor entry point. Bonus use. Lemongrass is the base of almost every Southeast Asian broth. Cut a stalk, bruise it, drop it in stock. And tonight, brew lemongrass tea and let the steam work while you sit on the porch. Now, look, this is where it starts getting genuinely strange. And I cannot stress this enough. What catnip does to mosquitoes should be front-page news. The compound is called nipetolactone, and in 2001, researchers at Iowa State University published findings that nipetolactone is approximately 10 times more effective as a mosquito repellent than DEET. 10 times, not 10% more effective, 10 times. DEET has been the gold standard for mosquito repellent chemistry since 1946, and it's sitting in second place behind a plant that costs $3 at any garden center and actively entertains your cat. Nipetolactone works by triggering a specific avoidance response in mosquitoes. It doesn't confuse them the way citronella does, it actively sends them in the opposite direction, like a hard stop. Catnip grows in zones 3 through 9, which means Alaska, Maine, Montana, almost anywhere. It spreads aggressively, so plant it in containers rather than directly in garden beds, and position those containers at the corners of your outdoor seating zone. Bonus. Catnip tea is a mild sedative used historically for insomnia and anxiety. And tonight, make a simple spray. Steep fresh catnip leaves in boiling water for 20 minutes. Cool completely. Strain into a spray bottle. Apply to exposed skin. The research holds up at topical application too. Here's the thing about marigolds, and this is the one that made me sit back and actually reconsider everything I thought I knew about the pesticide industry. Marigolds produce a compound called pyrethrin. And pyrethrin, right? is the direct botanical precursor to synthetic pyrethroids, which is the active ingredient in virtually every commercial household insecticide on the market. The multi-billion-dollar synthetic pesticide industry spent decades reverse engineering what marigolds were already doing naturally. The chrysanthemum family, which includes marigolds, was running a pyrin-based insect defense system long before any chemist decided to isolate it and patent a synthetic version. In the garden, marigolds affect mosquitoes at a neurological level. Pyrethrin disrupts the insect's sodium ion channels, causing repeated nerve firing until the insect can't function. That's not a smell deterrent. That's a hard neurological boundary. Marigolds grow in all USDA zones as annuals, zones 9 through 11 as perennials. Plant them in a dense ring around your vegetable garden and in clusters at the base of outdoor seating areas. Bonus: companion planting marigolds near tomatoes has been shown to reduce whitefly and aphid pressure significantly. Tonight, tuck a few cut stems into outdoor flower arrangements. The pyrethrin continues working from cut stems for several hours. Basil. I know. You're thinking pasta. But here's the science. Basil contains a volatile compound called estragol, and unlike most of the plants we've talked about, basil releases its repellent compounds continuously, passively, without any physical contact or crushing. Just the act of basil existing in warm air near your outdoor space is broadcasting mosquito deterrent. Research published in Bioresource Technology found that basil essential oil showed 63 to 80% repellency against Aedes aegypti, the species responsible for dengue, Zika, and yellow fever transmission under laboratory conditions. Basil grows in zones 2 through 11 as an annual, zones 10 and 11 as a perennial. It wants full sun and consistent moisture. Plant it in a cluster of 5 or 6 plants directly on your outdoor dining table or countertop. This is one instance where closest proximity matters most. Bonus: obviously culinary. But beyond that, basil-infused olive oil doubles as a skin treatment and passive mosquito deterrent. Tonight, place several fresh basil stems in a glass of water at the center of your outdoor table. The warmth of the evening air will passively volatilize the estragol. You'll notice the difference. Look, if you've been here this long and you haven't already started a plant list, seriously, hit subscribe. Every week we go this deep into natural home and garden solutions that actually have the science behind them. You're not going to get this from a label on a spray can. Rosemary, right. Another one from the kitchen. But the compound doing the work here, 1,8-cineol, is the same terpene found in eucalyptus oil, which has been WHO approved as an effective mosquito repellent for decades. Rosemary's 1,8-cineol works by interfering with a mosquito's acetylcholinesterase activity, which is essentially the compound that regulates their nervous system signaling. Disrupting it means they can't navigate effectively. Research from veterinary parasitology confirmed that rosemary oil produces repellency rates comparable to synthetic repellents at equivalent concentrations. Rosemary thrives in zones 6 through 10, Virginia, Tennessee, the Pacific Coast, the Southwest. It's drought-tolerant and loves heat, which is exactly when you need it most. Train it upright and plant it at the edges of pathways and entry points. Bonus: rosemary is a clinically studied cognitive enhancer. The same 1,8-cineol absorbed through scent has been shown in Northumbria University research to improve memory performance. Tonight, toss a few sprigs on your charcoal grill. As they burn, the volatilized cineol creates a repellent smoke perimeter around your cooking zone. Peppermint contains menthol and pelargonium, and pelargonium in particular has been studied extensively as a spatial repellent, meaning it doesn't just deter mosquitoes from landing on your skin, it deters them from entering a physical zone entirely. The University of Florida's entomology department documented that pelargonium-rich mint oils create what they describe as a behavioral avoidance radius, where mosquitoes actively reroute away from the compound source rather than simply avoiding contact with it. That's the distinction between a skin repellent and a spatial repellent. Peppermint grows in zones 3 through 8 and spreads aggressively, so, like catnip, container planting is the move. Line the outer edge of your patio perimeter with containers of peppermint. You're creating the outer defensive zone. Bonus: crushed peppermint leaves applied directly to the skin soothe existing mosquito bites immediately. Menthol activates cold receptors that override the histamine itch response. Tonight, blend a handful of fresh peppermint with water and a small amount of witch hazel. Strain, bottle, refrigerate. You now have a natural cooling repellent spray. Geraniums, specifically the Pelargonium citrosum variety, sometimes sold as the mosquito plant, produce geraniol and citronellol in concentrations that have been measured in peer-reviewed conditions to repel Aedes and Culex mosquito species. Geraniol works specifically by blocking octopamine receptors in insects. And here's what's significant about that. Octopamine is an insect-specific neurotransmitter. It doesn't exist in mammalian nervous systems. That's why geraniol is so effective as a targeted insect repellent with essentially zero impact on humans or pets. It's built for this exact application. Geraniums grow in zones 10 and 11 as perennials, but perform beautifully in all zones as container annuals. Hang them in baskets at head height around your outdoor seating area. The volatilization rate at that elevation maximizes the repellent radius. Bonus: geranium essential oil is used in high-end perfumery and has documented antifungal properties. Tonight, crush several geranium leaves directly onto the rim of your outdoor furniture. The oils transfer on contact and continue working for several hours. Citronella grass, and I want to be clear that this is different from lemongrass, is Cymbopogon nardus, and it produces the highest concentration of citronellol of any plant species. Where lemongrass is citronella's culinary cousin, citronella grass is the source material. What's been underreported about citronella grass is that its repellent compounds don't just affect Aedes mosquitoes. Research from the National Institute of Malaria Research in India documented effective repellency against Anopheles mosquitoes, the primary malaria vector, at natural use concentrations. Grows in zones 10 through 12 as a perennial but widely available as a seasonal container plant. Plant in large pots, this grass can reach 5 feet and position at the windward side of your outdoor area, so the volatilized compounds drift naturally toward where you're sitting. Bonus: citronella grass oil is used commercially in soaps, candles, and perfumes and has antifungal properties documented in vitro. The 10th plant is bee balm, Monarda fistulosa, and its active compound is thymol, the same compound that gives thyme its characteristic scent and that forms the basis of commercial mouthwash formulations. Thymol disrupts a mosquito's TARPA1 ion channels, which are sensory channels involved in detecting both temperature and chemical irritants. Activating these channels artificially causes what entomologists describe as an aversive escape response. Mosquitoes don't just avoid thymol, they flee from it at speed. Research from Purdue University's Department of Entomology confirmed significant repellent activity from thymol-containing plant extracts. Bee balm grows in zones 3 through 9. It tolerates partial shade better than almost any other plant on this list, and it blooms in brilliant red, pink, and purple through midsummer, right when mosquito pressure peaks. Planted in clusters in shaded areas of your yard, where mosquitoes tend to breed and rest. Bonus: bee balm is a powerful pollinator magnet. Native bees, hummingbirds, and butterflies will find it immediately. Tonight, steep fresh bee balm leaves in boiling water for 15 minutes. That tea is a natural expectorant, historically used by the Cherokee for respiratory infections. Okay, so here's the synthesis, and this is where all 10 of these plants stop being a list and become a strategy. You're building 2 zones. The outer perimeter zone, lemongrass, citronella grass, marigolds, and peppermint, goes at the edges of your yard, along fence lines, at property boundaries. These are your spatial repellents and your neurological disruptors. They're not targeting mosquitoes on your skin. They're creating a boundary that makes mosquitoes reroute before they ever reach your patio. The immediate personal zone, lavender, catnip, basil, rosemary, bee balm, and geraniums, goes in containers directly around your outdoor seating, within arm's reach. These are your contact zone defenders, your skin proximity compounds, your receptor blockers. The outer zone reduces the population pressure coming toward you. The inner zone handles anything that makes it through. That's the system, not a spray, not a candle. A functioning, self-regenerating, genuinely beautiful outdoor space that mosquitoes have been scientifically documented to avoid. And before we wrap this up, drop a comment and tell me which of these 10 plants you're putting in first and what's been your biggest mosquito nightmare this summer. I read every single one. Because the whole point of this is that you're walking into your backyard this weekend, planting 3 of these, and sitting outside on a summer evening without once reaching for a spray can. That's the goal. That's what you've always deserved.